Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our evening edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars Live Feed Spoilers. It's kind of like Coco Vanderwolf is waving. See, she agreed to do a collab with us. We worked out the terms with her beforehand. She was very, very greedy with her demands.
And we're all right with that. She can have anything she wants.
We are really at a point right now where we just need like dogs and snacks and other like various good happy things to try to make it through this week in the house.
Yep.
We will talk in this video about a lot of big things, but I think the biggest one is, did Da'Vonne ultimately did Nicole put herself in a position where she loses Da'Vonne's jury vote? I think there was a very important conversation we're going to dive into there alongside some other things. But before we get into it further, if you do like this discussion, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and support us further. Check those links to the store and also our Patreon. Coco would very much appreciate it.
Yes.
Just like we appreciate she hasn't actually left yet.
So Da'Vonne ended up going to Nicole and having a conversation with her where she basically said, I need you to tell me the absolute truth. Were you the person who didn't end up voting to keep Ian? I just need to know. She doesn't want to end up leaving the house looking like a clown. And Nicole is still standing by that she did everything right. It wasn't her. She is all part of it. Everything is fine. Reassured her. Da'Vonne left the room. And then, Nicole looked at the camera and basically was like, I know I need to tell her. And she knows that she's in a position that she needs to tell her.
This whole conversation, it felt like, one of those moments near sort of the end of Breaking Bad when like Walter White and Hank would have conversations and you would just know something bad's about to happen at just about any other, like it felt like this was a really sort of cinematic showdown between these two in a way where Da'Vonne is desperate for answers. I think something that we always kind of forget about when we're talking about jury votes and the like is no one wants to be made to feel like they were stupid in the game. Like this, to me, this is why Dan Giesling lost Big Brother 14. This is why Paul has lost Big Brother in the past. They made moves without really consequences for how someone else felt.
Yeah, and now we're in this situation where Da'Vonne really doesn't want to be in that position. Nobody does. And while this is a house that's based on lies and everybody's lying in it, and that is part of the game, you do still need to make sure that people leaving the house are not leaving feeling like they got clowned. And in this particular season, a lot of people have come into the house for different reasons. They have all, of course, come for the money, but that is not the only reason that many of them have come into the house. Nicole Anthony also came in for her podcast. Tyler has come in for his jewelry. We know that Nicole is an influencer. Da'Vonne has also come in with her own very personal agenda like so many other people. And because of this, she really doesn't want to end up leaving looking like a clown.
I think she's especially just so worried about lashing out at David and being upset at David and being in situations where that will be presented on screen and then only to then realize later, okay, David was telling the truth this whole time. Like we went through this and talking about Sunday's episode and the way that was presented, and and all of this is so complicated, and it's really hard to like narrow it down in a video like this because obviously Big Brother's based on game moves, and I think Nicole was just thinking about a game move when she decided that she was going to vote to evict Ian and try to find a way to pin it on someone else. Like I think she had to be aware that there was going to be an emotional reaction and frustration and sadness and all of these other things, but inherently it is a game move. But Big Brother is not cut and dry. It's not a game that you can sort of just play emotionless. These are not robots in the house.
Yeah, and everybody in this house knows a lot of why Da'Vonne is playing the game this time around and some of her personal reasons for wanting to play this time around. The thing is that you still need to be able to make the game moves that you're going to make. And the move that Nicole came up with Danny is a good move. I think she just didn't expect, and I actually didn't expect this either, for it to turn into the flaming mess that it ended up turning into, and how angry everyone was getting about it. I expected people to be upset, but I didn't expect it to turn into that, and I don't think that they expected it to turn into that either. Now, it's a very weird situation because David has lied to Da'Vonne a lot, let Da'Vonne down a lot. I mean, yes, this is Big Brother. Everybody lies. I understand it. But still, Da'Vonne is kind of like, it's too much over here. Nicole has done a pretty good job of making Da'Vonne feel like there is something very real here. They started the game with an apology where Nicole apologized to Da'Vonne about everything that happened the previous season they were together. And then there was that challenge where Nicole took a punishment and gave her $5,000. So it was like, here's an apology, then here's some action behind it for me to actually show you that I am sorry. I want to give something to you for what you've done for me. And I think that it, really hit her. Who does that? Who takes a punishment and gives away $5,000 as a game for money?
Like, all of this is true, and Nicole is good at being a strategic player sometimes, but I think the flip side of this, of course, is that when you get so close to someone, or at least make them feel so safe on some level, that makes the betrayal, I think, all the more just heart-wrenching at the end of it. And I was listening to Da'Vonne and Kevin talk at one point, and, one of the things that Da'Vonne said explicitly to Kevin is, I don't think she would do this to me twice, meaning I don't think she would screw me over on multiple occasions on multiple seasons. And I think that is something that is replaying in her head, despite, Kevin characterized it as like a 5% chance that Nicole may have done something. And I think Da'Vonne just doesn't want to listen to this because I think she's transfixed on everything with David earlier this season, and then everything Nicole has done so far this season to try to make up for what happened in Big Brother 18.
And I totally understand why Da'Vonne is feeling that way. Yeah, this is a game that there's lots of betrayal, but I think these events that have been leading up to this point is why it is so difficult for Da'Vonne. She doesn't think that Nicole is going to betray her like this again. And I know there's probably out there people being like, oh, but it's Big Brother, of course, but not necessarily. And Nicole has put in these different steps to be like, hey, listen, I'm sorry. Let's make it up to you. Let's work it out. So I get why Da'Vonne is where she is.
Let's go over to the Nicole now, because after Nicole said to the camera that I gotta tell her, she goes to Danny, and the two of them try to talk some things out here. And Danny really tries to slam the brakes on Nicole coming clean to her and basically being like, okay, this is not a good idea. You don't want to do this. And I understand this argument. Like, I think on a personal level, it obviously I want Da'Vonne to know about this because I don't want her to feel embarrassed when she leaves the game. But I know there is a fear of, okay, if Nicole tells Da'Vonne, Da'Vonne's going to go then potentially tell Kevin. And right now, Da'Vonne's telling Kevin, you should work with Nicole after I go. That burns that potentially completely. And then it also ends up burning Danny potentially at the same time if she's sort of caught in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the two of them are running out of allies because I think their major alliance is going to be turning on them and going to be turning on them soon. So if Kevin then is not willing to work with them, I mean, they are starting to get into the spot where they're going to have no friends left.
No, they're not going to have a whole lot of people. And it's sort of like the advice Danny then gives to Nicole is, okay, well, if you're thinking that Da'Vonne's going to tell some sort of big epic speech, because apparently she had some sort of speech calling people out at the veto ceremony when Tyler didn't use it, ultimately Danny just suggested, okay, Nicole, just make sure Da'Vonne doesn't give a big speech. Like, make sure to find some other sort of way where she doesn't end up being embarrassed or anything else like that. It's like, I don't think Danny and Nicole really understand the emotional complexity to what is going on here, but I also understand Danny's got to tell Nicole something to make sure that Nicole doesn't just out all of this.
Yeah, because if I was Da'Vonne and Nicole told me this, or somebody in the house told me this, I would probably leave in a blaze of glory,
Yes.
and I would just out everything. It would all go down, and as it should at that point. But there is a way, and the problem is I think Nicole just missed it. Because I think it feels like Da'Vonne went to her in a very sort of honest moment to be like, listen, I am open to hearing what you have to say. So if you tell me that you did this, I'm open to hearing this right now, and then we can move forward from here. And that was it. That was the moment. Can there be another moment? Sure, there can be another moment, but it's got to be fast. Nicole can't sleep on this and tell her tomorrow or something like that. It is too long. She has to do it right away.
And I think Nicole and Danny have this idea of, oh, maybe we'll just tell her in a goodbye message. But by the time you get to the goodbye messages,
you've already clowned her.
Yeah, she's already going to be thinking this during the live show. And also, you don't know with 100% certainty. I think it's probable they would play that goodbye message to her, but you're putting yourself at the mercy of Grodner, the editors. Like, what if they show Tyler before you telling her about everything that happened? Then all of a sudden it's Tyler, and she's not going to be mad at Tyler. She's going to be mad at you.
And honestly, I think even if Nicole tells her in the goodbye message, she's still going to be mad about it. Like, yeah. It's a great move. The problem is that they know they were there for that fight. So they didn't expect that. Okay, cool. You didn't expect it. But now you've seen it. So you know how heated this has gotten. This isn't just necessarily about game anymore. You need to fix it, not just leave it in a message. You're going to lose that vote.
Yeah, I think she is going to lose that vote. At Big Brother, it is about adapting. Like Da'Vonne, one of her biggest weaknesses, wasn't really able to adapt and realize that David is someone who wants to work with her at this point, who's not out to hurt her at this point. Like, that is a part of the game. But I gotta talk about David in a lighter sense now, because you know I love it whenever David thinks that he has like a little bit of power.
Yeah, whenever he's got a little bit of power, he likes to sort of flex himself a little bit. So, you know, he was talking to Kevin a little bit about stuff, and he was getting kind of like feeling a little weird and salty about the fact that Kevin didn't ask him to play Veto.
I love this conversation because it was Kevin like sort of subtly was like trying to campaign and was just doing his typical, you know, I don't know what's happening in the house right now, but I kind of feel like, oh, you know, maybe I could get your vote. And then David is just like, why didn't you guys pick me to play in the Veto? And then Kevin is like trying to like walk it back and be like, oh, you know, I thought maybe we could find a way to not like to be able to save us all and it could work out. And then David is just sort of like, you guys know, I could have saved us all. I could have found a way to make this all work for us.
Yeah, if he had just been able to play the Veto and won the Veto, he could have taken one of them off, and at least then the two of them would have been able to vote and maybe do something to save Da'Vonne, depending on who else is up there. It's just, I mean, they did make a bad choice not bringing in David. I know that David promised Memphis he wouldn't, you know, use the Veto, but that doesn't mean that David wouldn't have used the Veto. I mean, David's really unpredictable.
David, I feel confident David would have used the Veto because David's gonna screw over Memphis. Like, let's be honest here. David's not gonna give Memphis what he wants. Yeah. One of them probably would have been going anyway. Like, I understand that. It may not have shaken things up, but maybe it would buy a little bit more loyalty because David sort of was just like with Kevin, well, you guys obviously don't trust me. And if I was David at this point, I would kind of be like, well, yeah, I kind of feel like they don't trust me. They didn't pick me in the Veto. They don't believe me when I was actually siding with them. This Kevin-David relationship, if Da'Vonne goes, we are just going to sink like quicksand into a pit of despair with these two.
Oh, all the underdogs are going. These two are not going to be working together after this. David is really going to be on his own, and Kevin will, like, be on an island on his own. Like, they're not going to be able to come together. And from David's perspective, I actually really understand it. He voted the right way.
Yeah.
Nobody believed him. Then they didn't choose him for the Veto, so that just further cements that they do not trust him. They do not believe him. So why would then David all of a sudden be like, all right, Kevin, Let's drive this clown car together to the end.
Okay, so I gotta say something here at this point. I understand, Kevin, David, I'm gonna speak to both of you here. If you guys don't want to work together and be super cool, that's fine. But if one of you wins the next HOH and nominates the other person, you see this glass of water, I will pour this glass of water on my head if that happens. Don't make me do that. I like my clothing. I do not want to be drenched in a video.
Yeah, we do not need to have all that. I'm just looking around like, oh my god, what's going to get turned into, like, he's going to electrocute us here. Please don't do that. You promised something that I feel like could actually happen because David's going to be mad at Kevin and Kevin holds a grudge. So, thank you.
Here's the thing. They're not going to win HOH anyway because that has been what is happening in Big Brother 20. Let us be real here.
Well, maybe instead of a glass of water, you could, like, eat an old shoe.
How is that better?
Because then I don't get one.
And then I get, okay, so we have old shoe, glass of water, any other suggestions as to how I can embarrass myself if this happens?
Old shoe.
Let us know
Old
in
shoe.
the comments. And if you guys do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you want to support us further, check those links in the description to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.